Good afternoon. My name's Alun, and I'm today facilitating a game of my Dark Age hack of Monster of the Week by Michael Sands, published by Evil Hat. The hack is called Eotenweard, which is my hack translation into Old English of Guardians Against the Monsters. This is the first of two sessions titled The Synhamm Curse. The game is being run as part of the Gauntlet online community. If you don't know about the Gauntlet, then search for the Gauntlet RPG, and you will find lots of great stuff and lots of great people playing role-playing games. The players will introduce themselves shortly, but let me just clarify the game we're playing. I don't want this to turn into a lecture, but this game is set 200 years after the legions withdrew from Britain, and at least 200 years before the Age of Vikings, which is portrayed in Bernard Cornwell's Last Kingdom books and the BBC TV series based on them, and Prime's Vikings. Despite that gap in time, the look and feel of the world isn't going to be very different to those touchstone shows. What is different is that at this point, the indigenous people of Britain are still mostly Celts. They were integrated into the Roman Empire, but over the last 200 years have fractured into a number of Celtic Christian kingdoms in the north and west of what is today England and Wales. The south and east of the country is dominated by a ruling class of pagan Anglo-Saxons, though we're at a point where missionaries from Rome and the Frankish kingdoms of Europe are making some inroads and introducing their variety of Roman Christianity. And at this point, the relations between Roman Christians and Celtic Christians are not necessarily good. Meanwhile, what remains of Rome are the network of roads they built in varying states of repair, increasingly ruined buildings in large deserted towns around where legionary forts were placed, which frankly most locals think were probably built by giants, because that stone building is far beyond the timber-based building skills of the current day. The supernatural world is very real to these people, whether they see it through a Christian lens or that of the Anglo-Saxon gods, Woden, Thunir, Frigg and Tyr, and the rest that will one day fuel a Marvel franchise. Some of those still cling to the old gods of pre-Roman Celtic religion, and most believe that the Fae are close relatives of those old gods. In terms of this session and these two sessions, what all the characters know are the rumors have spread about the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Synhamm. It's said to be threatened from within and without, as its sickly Saxon Earl lies dying. And as in Monster of the Week, the root game for these sessions, characters are in the business of discovering whether these rumors have a supernatural or occult basis, finding the monsters and protecting the innocents from them. In terms of tone, a lot of the tone will depend really on how the players come at it. But this is a supernatural dark age where monsters are real and life is cheap. So we may encounter some mature and horror themes. Because of that, we'll be using the Gauntlet's preferred safety tools. So lines and veils. Now, the lines I have in mind, and I'll open this up to the players in a moment, would be graphic violence against children, graphic images of torture, and sexual violence. Those three, while the consequences of them and they may happen off screen, we won't see the detail of them. Is there anything else that any of the players want to add as a line? Okay, that seems to be fine. In terms of veils, because I'm old and British, sex will be veiled. It certainly can go on, but we won't see the details of it. Mist may fall, waves may crash, but we won't see the details. The other safety tool we'll be using is the X card. I would say put this in the chat, but I would be honest and say that sometimes I lose track of the chat when I'm running games. So the best way would be to give me a visual signal I can't mistake. I won't ask any of the players why they play the X card. I may ask where they want me to rewind the fiction to, so I can get it back to the right place and make sure that if I go a different way, I can avoid what may have concerned them. So if you do at any point feel that you know uncomfortable in a bad way, then please do X-card it and give me a chance to put it right. If something comes up and then later in the game you feel a bit uncomfortable, or if it comes up again or a reference is made to it, please don't feel that you can't then X-card it at that point, and we'll do our best to kind of retrofit a more appropriate route through the fiction. Finally, we'll be using the Gauntlet's inclusivity policy, and we have an open table. So while I do hope all 3 of my players can be here next week, if they're not, then we'll cope with that. But equally, if during the game you need to get up and kind of stretch your legs, take a break, just mute your microphone, turn the camera off, and have a wander about. We'll hope you'll come back, but if you don't, you know, that's fine too. Okay, well, with all that in mind, I think it's probably time to introduce the players, or for them to introduce themselves. I'll do this in the order of the character keeper, if that's okay. So we'll start with Jim, then Blaine, then Alejandro. If you could just introduce yourselves and give us a quick pen picture of the character you're playing this afternoon, or morning, or very early morning, depending on where you are, that would be helpful. So, Jim, over to you.
Hey, everybody, I am Jim Crocker. Folks who know me from, I've been on the Gauntlet about a year and a half or so. I run a whole lot of games on the Gauntlet. I've played with Alun a couple of times, and those were a lot of fun. So I'm really happy to be playing in a game that he is running. And folks who know me from outside the Gauntlet probably know me because I own a business where I sell a whole lot of the games that we play on the Gauntlet, including Monster of the Week, which I sold a whole ton of just last week when I was at PAX East. The name of that business is called Jim Likes Games, and you can find me online at jimlikesgames.com and on Twitter at jimlikesgames. And I am going to be playing Cecily. Cecily is the commoner. She is the daughter of a baker, so she knows how to do things like bake and make butter and cheese and things like that. She is going to be our get into trouble so that the other characters can rescue her character. And I'm hoping that we can find a nice balance between like not being a damsel, but also definitely being someone that needs someone with a big axe to come in and rescue her because she, her curiosity gets her into trouble. So, and I guess the other character that I need to introduce is my nanny goat called Grumps, who is my kind of traveling companion. And when things get really dire, I can get a little milk out of her to keep me going while I'm on the road between villages. So I think that's basically Cecily in a nutshell, and we'll play to find out the rest of what we know about her.
That's great. Traveling butter maker, traveling maker of goat's cheese. Great. Okay, Blaine, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your character, please?
Hello, I'm Blaine. Don't have a long spiel about a whole lot of stuff that I do related to the games. Most of my involvement with games online, at least, is through the Gauntlet. Been with Gauntlet about a year coming up on a year in October. Yeah, not a lot there. I've played with everybody at this table before, and so had no issues then. Hope to have a good game here. I will be playing Owen, who is a Celtic hunter. He is a monster hunter, and also probably a hunter and potentially even a poacher, depending on how tight times get. He has a hunting dog named Cormac, who's just a giant hound. As far as personality, he's probably got a bit of that, just a boastful, bit of a braggart, I would imagine he's going to be. But the rest we'll sort of figure out as we go.
Thank you very much for that. And finally, Alejandro, do you want to introduce yourself and your character?
I am Alejandro. I have been with the Gauntlet since like November, December. I've been playing pretty consistently with the Gauntlet since January. And the Gauntlet is great. I'm playing Isinius, who is a Hispanic Celt. I believe he grew up in a household where religion was Christian, or in a society where that's Christianizing. But he showed signs of the old ways. One of his moves is the other world, which means he hears voices and communicates with spirits and stuff like that. And his family freaked out and sold him to a slaver. The slavers, having a child on the board, tried to take advantage of him, and he would lash out. And he has the playbook move die, which means he can cause harm with his soul move. And basically, the slavers realized this boy was more trouble than he was worth, and they just dumped him at some random port town, which is where I imagine Isinius either met Cicely or Owen. Isinius has the move in the mind of the monster, which means he knows, like he has like some sort of link with monsters and can kind of guide people to the monsters. And so I can see him having some sort of connect, like maybe Owen is interested in having him around, or I can see Cicely having interest in having him around, or not interested in having him around, but maybe feels she feels like he can, or like is trying to help this lost, shabby-looking Hispanic child. So I'm probably one of the few people with black hair, where most people here are blonde or redheaded or something like that.
That's helpful. Yeah. And it provides me with an interesting segue to talk about Isinius's justice and vengeance traits. Now, his heroic trait is justice. His doom trait is vengeance. Tell me how that was revealed to him, how these characteristics of his have been revealed to him, and what drives that sense of justice or desire for justice and that desire for vengeance, I guess.
Yeah. So he was treated horribly his for as long as he can remember. So his desire to seek justice comes from his experience of being forced into slavery, because he had these gifts. So it's a view on the injustice that's being portrayed on the old world ways of thinking and acting.
So can I just be clear? So is that justice? I quite get he's been badly treated by just about every adult he's come across, parental or not. So is his sense of justice driven by wanting to ensure other people aren't as badly treated as him, are more justly treated, or is it very focused on the old gods?
I don't know. I feel like it's both. I don't know that I can differentiate that at this point. You know, it's yeah.
Because I was hoping you would cast it as broadly as you can. To be honest.
Yeah.
So I think it's that sense of wanting people to be treated fairly, irrespective of heritage, culture, religion, the whole shebang.
Yeah. He has an issue against Christianity, but that's a personal thing, and I can see that evolve.
Well, then let's talk about his doom trait, which is his desire for or tendency towards vengeance. So I think you just told me where that vengeance is principally focused. Am I right?
Yeah. It's also going to manifest as circumstantial, like if he sees somebody mistreating another person. So his magic cost, is violent rage, guilt, and hallucinations. So I can see like him getting incredibly angry, seeing and just acting maliciously when he feels like, especially like another child is being mistreated or something.
Yes. So would I be rash to be seeing quite a circle of potential chaos here? He sees someone treated unjustly. He wants some vengeance. He rushes to violent rage. He maybe feels terribly guilty afterwards or has flashbacks.
Yeah.
Well, that could take up most of session 1, I think. Okay, so we're sorted in terms of material. Fine. And so it's life experience that is the revelation of these. It's his life experience that drives those. Okay, can you put that in the revelation box just so I can remind myself where it comes from?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you can mute yourself, we'll move on back to Owen. Tell us about Owen's heroic and doomed traits, please, and how he comes to know of them.
So Owen's traits are trust and deceit, respectively, which might seem a little bit at odds at first. So I think the deceit comes from, we are in sort of this hard time, but also monster hunters aren't. Monsters aren't widespread enough that it's just easy work for them. Like they can always go somewhere and find that. So there's definitely been some hard times where he's had to either lie to say that, hey, there's this monster here, if you pay me I'll go take care of it, and there wasn't actually a monster or something like that. And then also at times just poaching or maybe even the occasional theft, something like that, just to get by. Where the trust comes from, I think, is that he came by this trade working with he was apprenticed to this, and so he's used to working in that team with his master and then the other apprentices, and then that group matured and he moved on from that, and now he's trying to form his own group, basically.
So give me some idea of, is he recently apprenticed, or has he been out in the world making his way himself for year or years?
I think he's relatively recently graduated from apprenticeship, but he has been it's been probably 2 or 3 years since he's graduated from that.
So he's still in many respects he's in his prime. He's in his late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Early 20s, I think we'll shoot for.
Okay. Fine. That makes a lot of sense, and we'll worry about how he's related to the others shortly. Okay, then Cecily, tell us about your heroic and doomed characteristics and how you've come to know of them.
I think my heroic and doomed traits are kind of tied together, as they are in a lot of these cases. My heroic trait is generosity. And for my revelation, I have put the Bible verse from Matthew that is the basis for that. I'm a serious Christian. Or at least I believe myself to be a proper Christian. And we can have, and it sounds like we might have some interesting theological debates about, theory and practice, like we have since the jump. So, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I think that there was I think there was a time when my father was fell ill. There might even been like some plague that came through, and he, he got the buboes and all that kind of stuff and was bedridden, and we prayed a lot, and he lived. But during that time, he wasn't baking bread, and certainly even if he had been, nobody would have been buying it. So we relied on the charity of all of our neighbors who my father had, and like basically the charity of our neighbors was what allowed my father to live through that and allowed the family to survive.
So,
And yeah,
so that generosity then is driven by having seen Scripture in action,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
seen
yeah.
it work,
hmm
and so it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
Okay, fine. What about your doom then?
And so my doom springs from that, in that, like, I was in a house where there was plague. I didn't come down with it. And so clearly the same devotion that I have will protect me from any harm that I might get into.
Why did you stay and nurse your father when the rest of the family sought safety with neighbors?
Because my mother was dead. And she died. Well, I've probably got like four brothers that actually lived out of the 7 or 8 that that came along. So we actually had a relatively prosperous family. Like about half the kids survived into young adulthood. But
And
all of my
until his illness, your father could keep them in reasonable condition.
yes, yeah.
Is there a connection between that illness and the difficulty of keeping now the 4 younger brothers going that explains why you're on the road and not being married off to the local village?
No,
Somebody.
like I think that I think that my probably at the time I was the oldest. I was like maybe in my early teens, 13, 14, something like that. And um nursed my father back to health. But I think maybe um there might be, like, back in my little village, maybe some suspicion that um uh despite my piousness, uh I might have made some kind of, I might have appealed to somebody besides God to save my father.
Well, there's many Celtic Christians will leave milk and butter or bread for Fae to be granted favors.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And all of that in the context is extremely reckless.
Yeah.
Works very well. Thank you. Okay. Can you have a look at your playbooks and you'll see a number of possible bonds. What I'd like each of you to do is to focus on one of those bonds and offer it to the table, see if anyone picks it up. Which one is most interesting to you that somebody might pick up?
Can I ask you to just name us so that we know who?
I'm sorry. Yeah, fine. Shall we start again then? Well, Jim, I've worked my way back to you. I'll start with you and go forward. Do you want to put one on the table and see if anyone
sure.
runs with it?
Someone saved me from a monster. What and how?
Who wants to pick that one up? Who wants to have saved Cecily from a monster and tell us how?
I think that Owen would be the obvious choice, being the actual bona fide monster hunter, although in a sense we're all monster hunters. I'll take that up. I saved you from a monster. Let's see, what would it have been? I think it could be like I found you on the road and you were about to be misled by a will-o'-the-wisp or something like that. And probably Owen would like have caught up to you, stopped you, and said, and like pointed out, like, hey, you're about to step into the bog and drown, probably.
That's totally perfect, because the idea that there might be somebody stuck out there that I could go help would totally be a thing that would send me off the road. Even after the shepherd who pointed me in that direction said, "Whatever you do, don't step off the road." So yeah, that's perfect.
Never step off the boat. This is set in the east of England, which is to a large extent fenland and marshland at this time. So that just fits beautifully. Okay, moving along then to Owen. Would you like to put one on the table and see who picks it up?
Okay, let's see. Blank is related to you. Ask them how closely.
That's a pretty narrow choice, given that Icinius is.
Yeah, a lot of these are narrow choices given our current thing.
It's just you haven't. The only person who could be related to you, frankly, is Cecily. I got no problem with that.
I can look at some of these others too. It's all right, I'll take this one. Blank doesn't trust you. Ask them why.
Any takers?
Alejandro, do you want to take that, or?
Yeah, I can take that. And I think I don't trust you because I'm not sure of your motivations and your goals. You said that sometimes you poach, so I question your morality, per se.
Does that work for Owen? Okay. I'm just wondering, because you talked earlier, Icinius, about your capacity to maybe sense monsters sometimes, and the idea of being some kind of divining rod for a monster hunter.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your bonds that would make that fictionally more solid, or have you got another one in mind?
Well, there's one where Blank thinks you are a monster. I'm not so sure that one really fits. Like the bonds for this character sheet are not ones that really fit the backstory that I created. I have Blank thinks they can help you control the cost of your powers, but I would think that.
Oh, that's totally me.
Okay, then let's do that. I think that I'm
no. If I can help you see the right path to walk, for sure.
It's the Christian thing to do.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would imagine I'm kind of secretive of my powers. So, okay, I think that works. That you're okay. Yeah, all right.
So if you write down Cecily blah blah blah, there's then a question. What's the question? I can't remember what it is.
Ask them how.
So Cecily, tell Icinius how you seek to keep on the straight and narrow, and this could be the straight and narrow simply as a lost boy.
Yeah, I think that and also the other thing is that, so like if one of the things you said is that you try to keep your powers hidden. I mean, we know about it, but if one of the things I do is like create, other explanations for things that you do to kind of lead people off the, off the beaten, kind of away from, you're the devil child,
Right.
then I feel like that's also helpful. But yeah, but no, I'm like you have this whole problem with people exploiting you, and I am here to show you that that the darkness inside you doesn't have to be that way all the time.
Okay, I like
And
that.
not all people are like that.
While we're Cecily, we didn't quite pin down how old you are. We talked about the fact that you looked after your father as a teen. Was that long ago? I'm trying to get a sense of the
No, I
age
think
difference.
this was like I wanna pick myself like maybe 20, something like that. Like like I should be married, but I'm not, like a crone or an old maid or anything.
No, absolutely not. And so, is there part of you that sees Icinius as a bit like one of your younger brothers? Because we've pinned down that Icinius is a boy, but we've not pinned down.
Hell yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Icinius, do you want to just help us by pinning down his age? I mean, very broadly.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's probably around 12.
Yeah, for sure. Then, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So there's something about, if I paraphrase, then it seems to me that it is something about looking at him as a younger brother who needs to be looked after.
Are you comfortable with that, Alejandro? Having like a big sister, little brother thing going on? Yeah.
I will dutifully be annoyed by it.
Excellent.
Okay, and then if we go back and ask Icinius to put another one on the table.
I'm thinking that so there's found out you used your powers on them once. What do you think? I mean, I think that's kind of Owen's now, right? Since I don't have one with him, so.
Yeah, the assumption is that you'll have one with each of the other characters.
So how do you feel about that one?
I'm cool with it.
Okay. So when did this happen, and how do you feel about it?
I think maybe this happened like when we first met, and like you were at that point extremely distrustful of me, and you're still distrustful of me. So it was like a reaction. You thought I was going to harm you or something like that, and maybe it was just Owen being probably trying to manhandle you out of the way or something along those lines, where it was probably to protect you or because you were in my way, but you lashed out with the powers because it was immediately just in the moment seemed like I was threatening you. As far as how I feel about it, I think Owen was probably extremely surprised and at this point also somewhat speculative. I think we weren't on air when we mentioned it, but Owen is also a pagan, which is rare for this, which I think is part of probably why he's having trouble as a monster hunter, is that the monster hunter, like the group that he apprenticed with, is probably a pagan group. So he's probably suspicious of your power being related to the old ways.
I think that this is interesting because I characterize my characters having a bad history with Christians, yet it's the Christian that is adopting him, and it's the one with the old ways that he's having issues with. So I think that sounds fun.
Interesting dynamic.
So if Icinius's playbook could just try to summarize that complicated relationship in a couple of lines, that'd be great. Moving back then to Owen, which other one do you want to put on the table, Owen?
Okay. Let's see. All right, this one's fun. The assuming is that it's going to be Cecily. So Cecily saved you from a monster. Ask them what and how.
Oh, that's great. It was obviously it was like a hag that had taken on the appearance of a beautiful young woman and had kind of lured you in.
Right.
But her glamour didn't work on me.
That works for me.
Yeah, so I think it's like, I think this may literally be like I threw a bucket of cold water on you. like I don't see Cecily as like ever bopping stuff on the head, like unless she absolutely has no other way to get out of it. But definitely like snap out of it and like, you know, throwing a like grabbing a bucket of swamp water and tossing that, you know, dumping that on you to get you to what the, and you know, and she's ugly with like, you know, weeds in her hair and all that kind of stuff and everything. I think that would be that does that sound fun?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, put as much of that as you can in that box. And finally,
it might have even been on that same swamp trip where you saved me from the will-o-wisp, and then, you know, like 2 days later, I saved you from, and we were like, yeah, okay, maybe we should, you know, we should stick together until we get to the next village, which turned into sticking together.
I definitely think that hag sent the will-o'-the-wisp and decided to have a second go.
Oh yeah, that's great. Cool, yeah.
So that gives Cecily one more bond to develop.
Yes. So Alejandra, assuming that this works for you, my other one that I really think works for you is that you revealed a dark truth to me. When, what, and how?
Yeah, so I think I can speak to the spirits. I have some sort of otherworldly connection to the monsters themselves. I think I'm somewhat sympathetic to the monsters, even though I understand they need to be destroyed. And I think I think we've only known each other for a very short period. Like, at least Icinius has only known Owen and Cecily for a very short period. And I think that you were on a hunt and you were struggling with the hunt, and I kind of told Cecily that yeah, it's because we're going in the wrong direction and we're misinterpreting its behaviors. We need to go this other way. And so the dark secret is not so much that ability that I have, but this kind of connection that I have with them, the sympathy that I have for them.
Okay, so it sounds like the dark truth is that, you know, by all accounts, you are also a monster yourself. I mean, is that kind of like...
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
like
That's actually another...
Yeah, that connection that you have is like, that's something I'm going to have to wrestle with. Yeah, okay.
It's only your generosity that's keeping him in the frame. Let me just put this to you, because what you've just created, I think, is a story where Cecily is traveling cross country. It almost falls for the will-o'-the-wisp. Owen saves her, could the hunt that you've just talked about, where the three of you were involved, be the hunt for that hag? So it's less she came after you as you went looking for her.
Yeah, I think that's great. Does that work for you
Okay.
guys?
That works. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah, that's super cool. Yeah,
Because that gives me a neat little bit of fiction that
Yeah.
puts you in the same place at the same time.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other questions or anything else you want to say before I frame us into getting you into the action?
I mean, is it entirely possible that we rescued Icinius, who was like, toiling, at the hag's house?
Does that work for Asinius?
Yeah. Well, it just kind of I revealed. That's when I revealed that how to. Okay. Yeah. That's when I revealed that I have some sort of connection to the monsters, and then that's how I ultimately you found me, and then that's how ultimately I helped you defeat the.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I see you in a coastal settlement where Icinius was abandoned or put ashore, and maybe this also links to the attractive woman turns out to be a hag, turns out not to be very pretty, because you were all set, Owen, to go after the ugly crone in the village, and it is Icinius who says, "No, not her, the good-looking milkmaid." Yeah, fine, because that puts you all three in a coastal settlement, which is about ideal for where I want to kick off. Now, I'm conscious that it is just after 1:15. I'm going to suggest that we take a break, a bio break, and a chance to get a drink. Shall we say we'll be back here at 25 past the hour?
Sounds
Does that
good.
work?
Yep.
Okay, I'll see you shortly. Okay. I'm just checking my Hangouts hasn't frozen. I think Alejandro's definitely moving. So is Blaine. Jim, you're not there yet, are you? No, that's okay. And we're back in the room. Okay. So there is a kind of map of sorts in the setting materials for this, but needless to say, you are currently in a village on the coast in the east of England. If you look at the map, then I think you'll find, and I now need to make sure I can find it, that there's a big notch in the east of England, which is called the Wash, between that big rump of East Anglia and the rest of the country. You are in that big rump to the east of the country. And that's the village where you have come together through your encounter with this hag. And a rumor comes to the village that on the other side of that notch, you'll see that there's a shaded area showing the great East of England fen. Just towards the northern edge of that fen is the settlement of Synhamm. Synhamm has been known to be prosperous, but is much less prosperous than it was. And the rumor is that its sickly lord, Earl Widdock, is dying. And that rings a bell because there is also talk of something called the Synhamm curse. Nobody knows what it is. But those two things together, I would propose, suggest to Owen that there might be some coin to be earned. Because even if it isn't a monster, we know he's not above pretending it is. And I guess that unless you are content to play this out, I'm just going to hard frame you into the boat. Okay, so you've crossed the Wash, that notch, heading towards Synhamm on a trading vessel, probably about 20 feet long, if that, maybe 6 crewmen at most. And you have, for the last hour or so, been making your way down a narrow river clogged with reeds to the north and south of you. The reeds are a good 10 feet high, and so your visibility is poor, and it's quite misty. But at one point on your journey, the steersman pushes hard on the steering oar, and rowers on one side of the boat back oars quickly, and the boat turns sharply to the right into a lagoon. And as you pass into that lagoon, on your left, you can see a large stone building. And if you have a look at your Synhamm map on the Synhamm tag, down there at the bottom left, you'll see a large for this village, black square. That is the stone structure you pass. It is probably, for many of you, perhaps the largest intact stone structure you've seen. And if you have a look on that same page, there's an illustration of Synhamm in perhaps happier times, and you can see that blocky building in the background. And the steersman steers you into the dock where he's come to trade, and this is what you've paid to get to. I'd like each of you to tell me something that you see, smell, hear, sense even, that tells you that all is not well in Synhamm. Just jump in.
Today is a rather clear and sunny day for this environment. It's, not a common experience, as I am led to believe. Despite that, instead of like kind of people being out and enjoying the sunlight, people are made very uncomfortable. It's almost as if the sunlight weighs heavy on everybody. It's almost like a bane to people, and so there's just like this. It's very clear that due to the sunlight, everybody's really just weighed down and heavy and walking strange, and
before you give me an and,
yeah,
I've got this oppressive atmosphere. I've got people apparently carrying a weight. It's a sunny day. They should be light on their feet and happy, and yet they seem almost weighed down by this. Anybody else got anything to put into this descriptive?
The animals are just going a little bit completely bonkers to an extent. Like the horses are pulling at their tethers where they're tied to posts. Like the dogs are just barking a lot more than usual, I guess, and like shying away from some people. And there's probably not any birds to be found except for maybe chickens, but even those are somewhat scattered.
Oh, so domestic animals are clearly disturbed by something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I before I ask you if you've got something to add, Cecily, what effect, if any, is this having on Grump, your goat?
I think Grump is pretty, like, Grump has one mood, and it's grumpy. And I suspect one of the reasons Grump kind of goes along with this is that she doesn't get, like, the good thing about it is she's totally not excitable. She doesn't get spooked, and she'll just meander along, no matter how scary things get. But the really bad thing is that she'll just meander along no matter how scary things get. You know what I mean? Like, like.
Yeah. So Grump is just grumpy. She's just as she always is.
Yeah.
Maybe these other animals are catching up in the grumpy stakes. But is there anything else you want to add to that description, Cecily?
Yeah, I feel like it's a problem that the nice stone church, like the little stone church here, is nothing but the stone walls, because the rest of it is a charred ruin because there was a fire, and nobody seems to be working on putting the church back up or fixing it, or so the fact that the church is a burned out husk, I find to be unsettling.
Certainly it is unsettling.
The Christian church.
Christian church. I mean, it is quite unusual to find a stone Christian church in an Anglo-Saxon settlement, but then to find it burned is a disappointment. Yeah.
So is this something that might have been like a repurposed Roman building or something like that they?
It looks like, I wouldn't say repurposed. It's pretty crudely built.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So it looks like it's been built by the locals.
Got it. Okay.
In emulation, but again, that is unusual.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. I like, but and if you're fine with unusual, I like unusual because that gives us something to like a hook to hang our hats on. So
indeed. So with those are your first impressions. You step off the boat. The crew begin to unload some pretty miserable trade goods, and there are some barrels of eels waiting to be loaded onto the boat. What do you want to do?
I think probably Owen would try and get like a lay of the land as far as hierarchy goes. I think the immediate way to do that would probably be by asking around, just seeing like who the important people in town are.
Well, there are some Celts working on the dock,
Mhm.
and in answer to any question like that, they'll point to that big stone building,
Mhm.
the Great Hall. That's where the Lord of Synhamm can be found.
Mhm.
I was just say, I think that I would like to get a lay of the land regarding like the spirit world, kind of connect with the environment and that kind of thing.
Are you thinking of something specific? Because you have some use magic stuff that might be applicable, or is this just looking about you spiritually?
Looking about me spiritually, I have the move Otherworld, so I feel like that allows, like, I can actually like see spirits and that kind of thing. So I think it's kind of an investigate roll, but pre-roll, not like I don't need to do, I'm just opening myself up.
Okay, we've got quite a special effects budget for this show. So when you look into the spirit world, what do we see?
So while Owen is speaking to these people, I probably go and sit on a crate or something kind of like out of the way. And I kind of, I close my eyes and I just start like listening, and then I'm opening up and I'm like, so I'm almost seeing like Alun or something like that, and I'm just kind of,
And at that point, the camera will shift to your point of view. So what does the camera see when it's looking through your eyes into the other world?
Yeah, so I see a few faces in the water looking up at me. I think in that burned out building, I see someone standing there looking towards me. And as another person like walks through them. And I think it's just like I'm kind of looking around and I'm just finding different voices and just making eye contact with different beings. And some of them might be ghosts, but some of them might be like spirits, like nature spirits or something like that.
Yeah, I that works for me. I just wanted some picture in my head of what your other world looks like, and what I'm seeing is you see the other world overlaid on top of the real world.
Yeah.
Okay. But you don't want to make an investigation roll on the basis of that.
No, I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm happy to. I just didn't. I don't know what I'm investigating, but yeah. I mean, let's find out what I'm investigating.
What have you got to lose apart from gaining experience?
Right. So it's 2d6. Okay. What does advantage mean?
Advantage means you roll with 3d6 and take the top two. Disadvantage, 3d6, take the bottom two.
Okay, so I rolled an 11. It's more than 11, right?
Okay, so on 10 plus, you hold 2, so you can ask me 2 questions from the investigate list.
What, if anything, is being concealed here?
What you see when you look into the other world is, you know, you told me that there was a face in the water, presumably some water spirit of some description.
Yeah.
As you go back, because that's where you start, and you go back to look at that face, what appears to be a smoky black mass in the water covers the face of the spirit and drags it down into the depths out of sight. And then as you look back around the village, it's as though it's sitting on, it almost looks like frozen black water seething under the surface. So that is what is being concealed in this scene. Do you have a second question for me?
So, just to clarify, it seems as though this smoky black mass is kind of attempting to conceal the spirit world.
Conceal it or overcome it.
Okay.
If you want to ask another question, helps you clarify that, fine and dandy.
Yeah. Well, what is it trying to do?
As you focus on this, you're seeing the ordinary people, you know, the mortal people wander around, and what you can see is this black mass under the surface, almost reaching and touching them on occasion, and then withdrawing, and then touching another one. You said that there was somebody standing in the church. I think that's probably the village priest, probably brushing up some debris. He can't see the ghost, perhaps, that you saw in there. But again, the black mass, moves under the village and reaches up to touch him. And you can see it doing that to almost everybody around the village. Okay?
Okay. I'm going to, I think Cicely is probably closest since Owen is talking. I'm going to grab you by the wrist and I'm going to say, try to avoid the blackness.
I always do.
No, like really this time. It's trying to get us right now. It's trying to get these people. I don't want to be part of these people.
And just to clarify, you will have seen it touch both Cicely and Owen as you've been watching.
Oh. Okay.
We don't feel anything, I assume?
Nothing.
Yeah, so I said that, and now I'm watching. I'm like really. When I said that to you, I looked kind of scared. I was kind of like, maybe not scared, but very uncomfortable, like agitated.
Cecily, what do you do anything with that information?
Yes. I say, yeah. I say, Asinius, don't worry. You stay right here in the sun where there's no darkness to touch you, and I'll go look. But I know that, but as long as you're safe here, and if anything happens, we know that we have Owen. He's just over there. So you wait here, and then I will, walk on over to that, burned out shell of the church, and kind of duck under a charred fallen timber, and go start poking around inside.
As you ask me to wait, I agree, and then follow you.
Okay. So,
just like any other younger brother.
So let me ask it. So can we step out just a second for mechanical stuff?
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
Specifically have a move where I can mark XP when I go off on my own. Alan, how are you interpreting, like, if I think I'm going off on my own, but he's sneaking along following me, does that still count as that, or how
I
are we
think
going to?
what's more important is that you go somewhere, check out somewhere or something risky.
Yeah.
So I think the way that I want to play this is, if it turns out to be risky in the church, you initiated the trip, you get the benefit of the move.
Perfect.
And if it is risky,
that's
you
totally
mark
cool.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of a meta thing there that I want to make sure. I just want to make sure we had that, negotiated in advance, so we know what's going on. I'm totally comfortable with that, as long as you're keeping track of it. Then that's good. And I'm going to poke around in the, like I said, kind of in the charred timbers of the church. But I also have a move called Look at This. When you want to stumble across something important, tell the GM, and you will find something important and useful, although not necessarily related to your immediate problems. I would like to stumble across something important in the charred ruins of the church.
Well, let me just play out the scene in a little bit more detail before we jump to that.
Sure.
The man in the church is indeed the parish priest, Father Hamlukutas. And shortly, I think I'll manage to put a picture in the character keeper of Father Hamlukutas, if you bear with me, just so you've got something to be working with. There he is. No, there he is. There we go. Okay. So there's Father Hamlukutas, if you can see him. And he looks up with at least one of his eyes, where he's been brushing some debris aside, and is clearly surprised because he recognizes you're not from the village. And he says, "Sister, welcome to God's house. How can I help you?"
Father, I would I call him Father? Is that appropriate? Yeah. So, Father, I have everything I need, but please tell me what I can do to help you restore your house.
If that would be good of you, my daughter, if you would, and he'd get another brush.
Yep.
And give you a brush, and if you would help me clear, because the walls are stone, but it's the thatch and wood tile.
Oh yeah, it's just a mess. There's all kinds of smoke damage and stuff, and So I'll start sweeping and cleaning, and this is all the stuff I used to do at my, at the mill. So.
And I think probably once you've started doing that, I need to know from Icinius whether he's coming into the church or not.
Yeah, I am. I'm probably kind of sticking to the walls and continuing to listen and observe the other world.
I think you've probably played that move. So I'll ask you if you want to use that move again, or do you, because it's not a constantly running thing. Mechanically. So I might come back to you on that and ask you if you want to do something. You tell me if you want to look into the other world. But in the meantime, you're just loitering by the door. You've crossed the threshold, but no more than that.
Right.
Okay. Alejandro, could you mute yourself? Because I'm having some trouble muting you from this end. I don't know why. Thank you. And you're brushing away, and clearly he's got some heavier duty workers from you to help move some of the bulky damage. And your estimate is that this probably happened 2 or 3 days ago. But I think that what I will tell you is, as you are brushing around the altar, you will notice a loose flagstone.
Oh, so I think that I'm going to so I'll while I'm talking to him and sweeping and stuff like that, I will, while he's over in the other corner doing something, I will carefully pry that flagstone. Like is it like a big, huge flagstone, or like a little, like a thing that I could conceivably easily lift myself?
I think the reason you notice it is that in the heat of the fire, I think it's cracked.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
and when you stand on it, it wobbles. So I think
Got
that
it.
you can certainly
Okay.
pry some of it up.
Okay. Oh, so you know what? I'm just gonna say, uh, I'll just call him over.
And he comes and
Yeah,
presumably,
and I'll say, look, help me pry this up. I say.
um I and replace it, he says.
Um. Uh. Yes, of course.
I think you're trying to convince him to do
I
something
sure
here.
am. Yeah.
So do you want to roll plus subtle?
Yeah, I sure will. I've actually subtle's what I'm good at. I've got
Everyone loves the commoner.
+2 on that. Yeah, 10 and 2 gets me to a nice fat 12.
My goodness me, this we may struggle to run for 2 sessions. You lot carry on like this. And he will absolutely go along with that. He says, yes, we cannot have a broken flagstone around the altar. Let's move these pieces away, and then you can help me lever one up from somewhere else in the church, and we'll replace this more important flagstone with that. And when he levers it up, and the first piece comes up, you can see that inside, underneath the flagstone rather, there is what looks like a canvas, something wrapped in canvas.
And I kind of make an expression of surprise, and I say, Father, could this have been something left behind by the Romans? And I carefully, and I'm just gonna just dive right in and carefully lift it up.
And give it to him?
No. I'm gonna put it on the altar and unfurl it.
There's it's difficult to describe this because it's a metal box about so big and maybe so deep, in pretty rusted condition.
Father, perhaps this is a blessing of. This is a sign. Perhaps what's inside can help you restore the church.
I think he won't disagree with that. I mean, if were this to be valuable, that would be a very helpful thing at this time, and so he will lever it open, and inside there is probably a rotted leather thong and a medallion which he picks up. Isenius, you're still at the door, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I did was I picked up a handful of dirt from the outside before I crossed the threshold, and now I'm inside, and I feel like that's some sort of like I'm preparing to cast a ritual, defensive or protective ritual, yeah. So I'm a little on edge.
Okay, and the priest picks it up and then falls over. He's clearly shaken. He's lying on the floor.
I run over there. Yeah.
And
we're muted then for a minute, Jim.
Yeah. So and so I see Isenius coming in, and I glare at him for a moment, but then I kneel down to the priest, and I say, Father, what was it? What was it? What happened? What did you see?
And he shakes his head. He says, I've had a vision from God.
Can you describe the medallion?
It's in his fist. So no.
So
at that point, I'm going to cut. So we'll cut back to the dockside, where Owen has had his conversation with the dock workers, these fishermen, and they've directed him up to the Great Hall. He knows that you've gone off into the church, the pair of you. So, Owen, what do you want to do?
Think since it wouldn't be immediately obvious that there's any danger of any sort in the church, Owen would probably continue about the business of getting the job, because that's important to him. So he would.
If there is a reason, because the roof is off. It's about 30 paces away, and you hear somebody say, "Ah!"
Okay, I wasn't sure how much I'd seen or how close I was.
So fictionally, do what you like.
If he had heard an exclamation from the church and he knew that they'd gone there, then yeah, he would rush over.
And what he'll see is what I've described, which is Cecily kneeling over the priest who's still on the floor, and Icinius standing nearby. What, if anything, do you want to do, Owen?
Let's see. I think the immediate thing would be to make sure that both of them are okay. They both seem to be, and then he'll also kneel down next to the priest and be like, "Father, are you all right?"
I've had a vision from God. My Lord, my God, the Lord God Himself has spoken to me.
Owen's probably somewhat disbelieving, and he'll say, "That's amazing. What did he say?"
And I kind of interrupt, and I glare at Owen, and I say, "The Lord spoke to him through the amulet he is holding."
An amulet. That's. Might I see this amulet, Father?
Oh, it is a holy relic. I must protect it with my life.
I'm not going to take it from you. I'm curious to have the honor of basking upon this amulet for myself. I just want to see it.
While you're trying to convince him, then, Icinius, were you wanting to do something?
Yeah, I want to detect magic or something to that degree effect. I want to,
well, I mean, there's a number of ways you can go about that. I mean, I think there are some magical effects down the bottom of your play sheet that you might want to try to invoke. They're way down the bottom at row 58. Or you could investigate a mystery and have a look into the other world. I don't know, which approach would you like to take?
Well, do something that's beyond human limitations. I mean, I want to. I guess it's an investigate look. It's more of an I'm trying to find a magical way in, but I guess it's just an investigate look. So.
Yeah, I think it probably fits more than any one of those specific magical effects at this point.
Yeah.
So that's roll with advantage by looking into the other world. Yes.
And there's also.
And meanwhile,
Alejandro, also take a look at Look About You, because that may be more what you're looking for.
The only challenge with Look About You is that it doesn't get the benefit of that other world.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's a mechanical thing going on. Okay, got it.
It's an interesting question whether it should do.
Yeah. I think I like.
Are there dangers we haven't noticed thing? Sounds like the thing you're trying to put your
finger
on.
I think a Look About You is more. So I rolled the 3 dice, but you want me to re-roll, or do you want to just stick with the first two, which is a 5?
I think we'll stick with the first two if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get me wrong. I'm very happy for you to look about you through the other world. You just won't get the mechanical advantage because I just think it's quite cool that that's the way you look at the world. I
think so. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I rolled a masterful 6.
Well, mark experience. And now bear in mind you do have your opportunity to invoke the fates on your behalf. I don't know whether you can make a case for your heroic trait being relevant here, but I'm prepared to listen to it because that could get you from 6 to 7 to 9.
Yeah, I don't see justice at this point. Yeah.
No, that's fine. It was really as much a matter of reminding you all of the mechanic as anything else.
Yeah.
So on a 6, okay, I think what you see is that I've told you already that there is this seething dark mass lurking beneath the settlement and rising to just touch people. I think that from where you're looking now, there is a space around him which is clear of that black mass. It's almost as though he's in an exclusion zone. Okay?
Yeah. I see this and I kind of stand up and take a step back a little bit, and I'm gripping the dirt really hard. So
fine. Meanwhile, Owen, you were trying to convince him, I think, that he ought to let you see this amulet. So I think that is convince someone, unless you have a move on your playbook that would be more appropriate.
I don't think for this particular instance my move is useful. So that's going to be convince someone. So that's plus subtle. So, oh boy, my worst stat. Here we go. Just reroll these. I got a 7, but I have a -1, so that brings me right back down to a 6.
Yeah, convincing people's not your great ball game, is it?
No.
So I think.
Luckily, I'm right there to help.
Well, I was going to ask the question, unless someone can nudge you over the edge.
So
in the scene, what do we see Cecily doing?
I put a hand on his shoulder, and then lay a hand on Owen's shoulder to kind of like symbolically connect the two of them. And I say to the priest, "It's all right. He is here with me."
Okay, and he's already recognized that you as someone with an interest in the church.
Yeah.
So I think that you roll plus subtle to convince him to be convinced.
9 plus 2 gets me to 11. So that gives him his +1, and I don't expose myself to risk.
So on a 7 to 9, then.
No, that's an 11.
Oh, yeah, it's an 11 for you, so that adds 1.
Oh, sorry, 7 to 9 for him. Yes, sorry.
So
I'm gonna shut up now.
So on a 7 to 9, they'll do it if you do something for them first. What will you do, or what will you offer to do in order to convince him? Because he's looking uncertain, and he says, I don't know whether I should let you see this. What are you prepared to offer to do?
Please, Father, I only come in peace. I see you. You've come in across hard times lately. I would hate to take anything from you. Perhaps I could, I think Owen will offer to move some of this heavier debris for him in exchange.
I think that will work. I think that he will, on that basis, consider you to be in good standing and a decent Christian man, however inaccurate that might be, and he'll open his fist out, and there's a medallion about so big, and it's engraved, and there is a sinuous figure, animal, perhaps snake-like, but with a very kind of peculiar head on it, that you can see. And there are clearly symbols or something around the outside, but given that none of you are literate, Lord knows what they are.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, obviously, I would probably keep my word on that. I don't have a reason to lie, so I will help him move some of the stuff. But I will probably also... I don't know how familiar Owen would be with Christian iconography, but given that it seems like the pagans are dying out from what we've discussed, the snake being the symbol on that amulet might stand out, but I don't know like how much Owen would know to act on that.
I think for you, the cross works. But given that you are pagan, I think that your interest in Christian iconography is probably not great. So it's not obviously Christian, is I suppose what you'd say on that basis from his point of view.
And I assume that I don't recognize the snake monster in any way either. I
don't think so. It doesn't. I mean, the only things that your master during your apprenticeship, he did tell you that there are said to be great worms living under the mountains. But it looks like a snake, but it's. I mean, and then he takes it back. He's, he doesn't give you to examine. He shows you, takes it back. So I think in the time you've got to look at it, that's about what you get. It's a sinuous creature with a non-snake-like head.
Can I investigate this, invoking the other world?
I don't see why you shouldn't. You're not stepping across the threshold into this exclusion area, are you? Or are you? I just need to have some idea fictionally where you are.
I will if I need to, but I'm not. I'm not right now. But if I need to, in order to get a closer look to it, then I will do that. Yeah.
Then investigate a mystery by peering into the other world.
Okay. I'm hitting the wrong button. 10, 12.
Okay, so another stunning success. That gives you hole 2. Ask me 2 questions. What is the other world? What is the other world signaling you should ask?
Yeah, these questions are weird. I think. So
I will interpret them as broadly as I reasonably can, because it is a common complaint with most of the week that the questions never quite fit. So I'll try and get a sense of what you want to know.
Yeah, it just seems like investigate and look about me should both be I think. Anyways, we can have that conversation later. So what happened here?
What you can see as you peer into the other world, I think, is that this man's soul, or his spirit, probably in your language, has been touched by that amulet, and with quite significant effects on him. So I think his spirit is burning brighter.
Okay. What is the amulet trying to do?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think the amulet is trying to communicate with him.
Can I interpret this as Christian versus old world? Like, I'd like to know what I'm...
I think this is not what you might consider to be Christian ritual or Christian. No, I don't think this is Christian. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's not to say that he won't think it is and be absolutely convinced it is, but you see nothing in this to separate it from him being somehow touched by the other world in an unusual way.
So I will turn to Cicely and kind of pull your ear down to me a little bit. I'm assuming you're taller than me, and I'm going to say that does not belong to him.
Well, no.
Can I just be clear fictionally? Are you having this conversation in his hearing? Because he's beginning to get to his feet.
Yeah, I'm whispering to... I kind of pull her back a little bit, and I whisper to Cicely, I go, that does not belong to him.
And I cock my head like I'm confused, and I say, no, of course it doesn't. It was found in the church, so it belongs to the church, but not to him.
It is not Christian.
It doesn't matter if it can be used to restore this place. It doesn't matter who made it. And I sigh, and I put a hand on his shoulder, and I say, all things are made by God.
I jerk my shoulder away, and I'm like, no, not all things are made by God. This thing is of the earth. It's of the earth.
All right. Are you afraid of it?
I'm afraid of what he might want to do with it.
That's a great segue, because Father Humlocutus says, I must take it to my lady. I must tell her to prepare a way for the king. All will be well.
Which king?
Do we know?
Go on, one of you. Yeah, so which king? Well, that's an interesting question. You're in no man's land here. You don't know who Earl Widdock pays tribute to, but that is something you might want to find out, I guess.
In context, do we know what lady he's talking about?
I'm not sure at this point you do, apart from the fact that he runs from the church towards the Great Hall.
Okay. I'm going to ask Owen to take a look at that box that we found it in. And whether... because he is... Owen, you have fought these creatures. You've fought monsters. And was this meant to hide this thing away? Was this not a box but a cage?
Okay. Owen will take it up and turn it over in his hand. It's very rusty, you said. Is there like any markings on the box at all?
It seems to me that you're investigating this box, aren't you? Let's see what you can see.
Okay. And that is a straight 5. And then for investigate, probably doesn't matter. I don't think I have a +2 in that. Oh, maybe I do. That's sense. No, that brings me up to a 6.
So why don't I... maybe my asking that leading question, does that count as help?
Yeah, I certainly think you've pointed him at it. I'm very happy for you to try to help him notice something.
Okay. Unfortunately, steel is not my strong suit, but let's see what we got. I got a 7 -1, which puts me to a 6. So do we mark XP on misses in this?
You do indeed.
All right. So the good news is experience points. The bad news is I'm caught up in whatever his.
Yeah, I think you're caught up in the fact that there's nothing. That if there may have been some markings on this, but it's so old. In fact, when you do examine it, I will tell you it is almost rusted through some of it. So it is very old indeed, even though it was wrapped in what might have been waxed fabric once.
And then Owen's answer to her will be, it's possible to tell. I've never seen a box quite like this used in that fashion, or I quite honestly don't have much experience with finding things in churches either, for that matter.
Well, then we should hie ourselves to the Great Hall before he says something. Actually, before he says something that we miss that's important.
I would agree. We're headed that way anyway. So.
Can I, like, while they were doing this, can I have followed the preacher out the door, and like once he crosses the threshold, I like magically trip him?
Oh, you can use magic, but remember, to use magic, you have to either use fate or harm.
Yeah. So fate is okay. I just,
well, look, mechanically, you have 2 currencies here. You have fate and you have harm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harm, you can get healed.
Yeah.
Fate, you can top up again by indulging your doom. Yeah. So it's almost entirely a question to you, almost, which way you want to go. But it will bind this character to that currency in terms of your use magic for these sessions.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling fate more than harm. Yeah. So I'm going to run out there and I'm going to trip him. So I'll knock down the fate.
Before you do that, just look at the magical effects on the bottom of your playbook, and just tell me which one of those is closest, because that allows me to kind of just position myself.
So I'm going to temporarily trap him. So I figure like he's just caught up in his robes, and he's like just like tripping over his robes and that kind of stuff. So
what, you're summoning some kind of little earth spirit up to just whip his robes around his legs and have him tumble. Fine. That's fine. So yeah, you roll plus weird.
Six plus weird. Or soul. 6, 7, 8. So I rolled an 8.
Okay, on an 8. Oh, by the way, I think you count down fate. So are you down at 1 fate already? Have you? I didn't.
No.
Okay.
I used 1. So
okay, so on 7 to 9 it still works, but the GM tells you what went wrong, and what went wrong. I think that the spirits are a little bit pissed off because you seem to be just dipping into the other world a lot. And so they just sting you for 1 point of harm. So mark harm as a bit of backlash. They did what you told them, but they want you to know that they're just not your servants. Yeah, so he trips and tumbles, which probably means that Owen and Cecily are coming out of the church where you've tripped him up. just at the point where he's getting to his feet again and just dusting himself off and getting ready to go, which I think means that you have delayed him, so you could all run together.
Yeah. Father, we'll go with you when you speak to your lady about this.
Yes, very well. The wider this great news is cast, the better. And I kind of imagining you kind of calming him down and taking his arm and walking him there.
Yeah,
so none of you have the indignity of having to sprint across the village.
Yes, yeah, kind of like the like, elbow through his, hand on his shoulder, talking to him about indeed how miraculous this is. And you know what? Can I pump him for information on how the church burned down while we're walking here?
I don't see why you shouldn't.
Right.
I think it's, it is the ubiquitous investigative mystery. What, if anything, is being concealed here, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
There ought to be a move just for that.
So, well, that's also it's kind of a what happened here. So let me see what I got for sense. I think is for me is I'm at +1 on sense. Eight plus 1 gets me to 9.
So near and yet so far. Would anyone like to help in this pumping? I'm thinking Owen, really. I'm not sure Asinius is into pumping priests for information, but I have a suspicion
you can't really
Owen...
trust what they say anyways. So.
Exactly. But Owen, do you want to join in this gentle interrogation?
Yeah, I can try. I don't know how good he's at it, but we'll certainly try.
So this is subtle, which is what you do best, I thought.
Yeah. No, all this social stuff is exactly what Owen does best.
Well, don't force me to. Don't let me force you to try then.
You don't have to. I'll take the 7 and 9.
Okay, yeah. I think...
Just because there's an opportunity, don't let me kind of railroad you into it. So I think that gives you 1 hold.
Yeah. And so my question is, who did this? Who/what did this?
Gulfrith the Smith, the Earl's brother. Earl's nephew, not brother.
Gulfrith.
Yes. He's been very angry for quite a while, and I think he decided to take it out on the church.
Has he been angry at you? Have you given him cause, or is he simply lashing, or is he just lashing out?
The truth is that I am sponsored by the Earl's wife as priest here. It is only through her goodwill that the church was rebuilt here. But Gulfrith lost his wife and children last year to fever and has been angry ever since. And I think just took it out on the church.
Were you here? Had you arrived when his wife and children were taken by fever?
Yes, and my lady asked me to pray for them, and perhaps Gulfrith was not happy with that, and so he's blamed a lot of people, but particularly me.
You hear me harumph in the background.
Just not a character just for a second. When he says my lady, that's the Earl's wife that he's referring to.
That's right? What's coming clear to you. Whenever he talks about my lady, he's talking about the Earl's wife.
Can we? I just ask him how she is addressed, so that when we meet her, we will know.
As my lady.
Oh, we don't even. Okay, all right.
I mean, I'm conscious that we've got about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
do you want a bio break now, and then we'll play through, or are you comfortable and we just play on?
If we can just take 5 minutes so I can go grab a glass of water, that'd be great.
Fine. Let's take a 5-minute break now. It's 23 minutes past. Back shortly.
Alan, so as I'm thinking about fate versus harm with the magic, I feel like fate, because I'm how I'm playing my character and how I want to direct my character, I feel like choosing fate is going to weirdly hit my character. So I think I'm going to go with harm instead, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
The two options are there to kind of offer players that choice.
I think that fate is an interesting. I can see it being a choice for Christians, and harm, like you said, that's common. If I'm choosing, because if I'm seeing my character being very magically oriented and kind of like relies heavily on magic for how he accomplishes things. So if it's fate and I'm acting vengefully to replenish my fate and I'm using magic, then I'm not going to replenish fate. It's just going to be this weird.
No, that's fine.
Thing.
And we can play that harm as either something as direct as some kind of shedding of blood, or simply exhaustion. Harm is, as generic as we want to make it. So whatever in the fiction works for you.
Yeah, I think that depending on the situation, it's going to I think it's going to be more active, like cutting myself or something like that. And
yeah,
I can see it being harm, like exhaustion sometimes, but more, it's going to be, I think it's a little bit more active than just exhaustion sometimes.
That's fine.
You could also be harming, like offering something of yourself to the spirits to like get them to do something for you as well.
Yeah. I think I thought about making fate soul, but there's a confusion there. You could offer them a bite-sized piece of your soul and just try to stay ahead of the game. But I don't know. I'm not sure that flies quite as much. So yeah, harm is simple.
Yeah. So I just gave myself 2 harm, just for that situation. Yeah.
And in terms of healing that back, a period of rest. I mean, I think in the player reference it says something like at the end of a scene, but it should say at the end of the scene when there's an opportunity to rest and bind a wound. ... Get one back. Yeah. So at the minute I'm going to keep that with you because there's a kind of momentum of action going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in the room, and I'm going to cut to the door of the Great Hall. And at the door of the Great Hall, there is a door warden who requires you to leave any weapons. This is perfectly normal behavior. You leave your weapons at the door of a Great Hall, and it means that you both benefit from hospitality, the rules of hospitality, and offer no harm. Yeah. So is there anyone who wants to hide any weapons? Be aware that there are very few of these weapons that are easily hidden. Okay, so you hand those over and he piles them up. You'll be able to get them when you leave, and then you help the priest in.
Yeah, and just for the sake of this, is a staff considered a weapon? Or is it a what?
Harmer, the door warden, says, "I need that staff."
Okay. Yeah. No, I just handed over. I'm just wondering if. Yeah.
No, sorry. I was. You're all too young to use the traditional response, which is, would you take a walking stick from an old man?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the hall. It's on the first floor of this structure. There's an outside set of very worn stone steps that have been shored up with wood. That takes you up to a door into what must have been probably historically the Roman barrack room, and so you have a quite low ceiling, stone arched room that's been partitioned up over the years to create a great hall with a fire pit and benches and tables, and then some partitioned spaces around it. And at the far end of this room, lit by the glow of the fire pit, on a raised dais, there are 2 chairs, one large one and one smaller one. The large one is empty, but there is a woman sitting in the other one. And what do you do? And while you're telling me, I'll just pop a picture of her in.
I think we're taking the priest up to the lady as the sort of course of action. I don't think we were exactly stopping him, but if it comes up, we'll also introduce ourselves to the lady, and if Owen gets a chance, he'll say we're monster hunters. We know you've had some.
Well, before you get into your pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the question, you do know that he's come here to tell his lady stuff. Mm-hmm. What I need to know from you is, once you get him in the room, do you let him loose? Or do you want to be the first to speak?
I think we'd probably, I don't know that he'd probably let us take that first position. He seemed pretty enthusiastic.
That is probably true. And so once Cecily lets go of his arm, mm-hmm. he rushes to the front and throws himself face down on the floor and says, my lady, I have had a vision." And she looks down at him and says, "Hamlecutus, a vision of what? Clearly, this is a woman who's preoccupied by some other stuff."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she looks up and says, and who are these friends you have brought to me?
Does he introduce us, or
I think there's a conversational space
mm-hmm.
into which one of you could step. Now, I'm conscious, Owen, that you actually have a move for this.
Yeah.
So do you want to use powers that be? And if so, tell me how you come at it in the fiction. What do we see on screen?
Yeah, in the fiction, he would step forward and say, My lady, we are recent travelers who recently came here. Are by trade. I am a monster hunter and was hoping to find business in your court, but we came upon the Father Hamlocutus in the church, and it seems he has discovered a relic of some kind that has bestowed upon him a vision. So like I'm introducing us also in the context of him is how we're going with that, and I'm like, my negotiation is I want the job.
Well, I think maybe let's delay that move until the time when you're a bit more precise exactly what the job might be. Okay, I'll go with that. And
I'm gonna like interject. I'm gonna say, but that relic does not belong to him.
She'll look at you and say, "What do you mean, boy?"
Look at it. Where's the Christian iconography on that? I don't know if I would use the word iconography. Where's where are the Christian pictures on that?
Yeah, there is no cross on this. Is the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she says, "Hamlocutus, let me see it." And he hands it over to her. And she goes and throws it on the ground.
I go and grab it. I pick it up.
Would you roll plus soul, please?
I will.
The 2 dice on the left?
Yeah. The pink ones. Yeah, the 2 standing out. So 4, 5, 6.
So I think you mark experience, because I'm not sure there's anything anyone can do to help in this circumstance. This is between you and that amulet.
Yeah.
And what
I guess fictionally, could someone have tried to stop him from grabbing it? That would have retroactive.
I think that might be tricky, because I think he thinks that it doesn't belong to them, and I think he acted really swiftly there. I wasn't expecting him to do that. And so you grab it from the ground before Hamlocutus can get it, and you have a vision. You have a vision. You're standing. It's as though
I'm sorry, your voice just died for a second.
Sorry. If it does it again, let me know. You have a vision. It is you are standing as if walking on water. It's as though the world around you has frozen, and you're standing on a dark night. There are, you can see the wavelets, but they're just not moving. They're frozen. They reflect, but they're not moving. And you're standing there, and you can see a dark mass racing towards you out of the depths. It is darker than the dark. And then it touches the amulet. And you know for an absolute certainty that this amulet is the key to saving Synhamm. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
And then do you drop it or do you keep it?
No, I keep it. I keep it. I hang on to it.
At which point Father Hamlocutus would say, "The boy has taken the holy icon, my lady. Boy, give me the icon. Give me this blessed thing."
The lady is saying this?
Anyone else got anything to say or do at this point?
Yeah, so I kind of I do that same thing where I put a hand on Asinius's shoulder, and I put another hand on the priest's shoulder, and I say, Asinius is blessed with what would I say, like second sight, maybe something like that. I say Asinius has been blessed with second sight. He helps us find things, and we should work together to act upon this vision. While I am here, nothing will happen to the amulet, but Icinius can use it to guide us.
I think that the lady sits back in her chair and she gives you a very appraising look. You will notice that she has a cross, a brass cross hanging around her neck.
Oh, I saw that in the picture. Oh, yeah.
Unusual for the wife of a Saxon earl. And she looks at you very appraisingly. She's a very sharp woman, probably in her 50s, which is pretty old around here. She says, "Strangely, I trust you, girl." And then behind her, there's a wooden partition with a curtain door in it. And behind the door, there's a... And she gets up and rushes through that curtain. What do you do?
I'm going to follow her to see if there's anything I can do to help.
I follow also.
Owen, is the gang all here?
What's the priest doing? Is he following as well, or is...
He is.
Okay, then Owen will stay with the group then, since that seems to be what's...
Beyond the partition is a, for the times, richly furnished room. There is a large wooden frame bed, carved, and on the bed lies a man who is, there we go, hang on, who is swathed in furs, clearly to keep him warm, so that only really his head, his face is visible. And it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together and determine this is Earl Widdock. And he's lying in there, throwing himself back and forth under the covers. Father, do something, says his lady. Anything you want to do? Or shall I just get on with describing what the priest does?
I will rush up to him and I want to attempt to assess his illness and yeah, because I have a feeling that this medallion is going to help him. So
just so I'm clear, this sounds like you are, well, you tell me, look at the questions under look about you, look at the questions under investigate, or do you have in mind a magical effect? I'm not entirely certain. Well, there is a magical effect: heal one harm, cure disease, or poison effect.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do.
Okay.
Try to heal him. Yeah.
Well, so this is your soul move, so you'll take another point of physical harm as you do a little bit more self-harm and bleed on him.
Yeah.
Or maybe get blood on your fingers. I don't know. You tell me. What does this look like? What do you do?
Is presumably there might be some sharp object about.
If nothing else, there's the seax at your waist.
No.
Oh, but we had to return.
Oh no, you handed us. Sorry, my mistake. Yes, there will be an eating knife next to a plate of half-eaten food beside him.
I'm going to pierce my palm and drag it against his forehead, so there's a line of blood across his forehead. And I'm also going to attempt, when I do this, to use the medallion, kind of have the medallion. I don't know if I can do that or not, but at least fictionally, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're trying to channel the medallion, or what you think the medallion might be. Yeah, fine, that's okay. Yeah. Then go ahead and roll plus soul.
8.
Okay, so I think that what you do when you touch him, you see he is wreathed in writhing black smoke of some description. This may be akin to what you've seen around the village, but this has it in he's in its grip. And when you put your hand and successfully seek to cure a disease, poison effect, or heal harm, there's a moment of calm as these dark wreaths withdraw from him, but it is extremely temporary. And almost as soon as it's gone, it's back.
But it's long enough that people can see that there was an effect.
Indeed. There's a calming in him.
Oh, I had a question. I don't remember what it is. Yeah.
Well,
so,
why? Oh, go on. Unless you've got.
No. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And there's a kind of stunned silence in that moment when he calms under your touch. And the lady says, "You are indeed blessed, boy." And there's a moment of calm in the room. And then it's disturbed by someone else bursting in, who I will just give you a picture of. Bear with me. Where is he? Where is he? What have I done with him? I know he's here somewhere. There he is. That man, if you go to Faces and Places, rushes into the room and cries, "My lady, the king is on the road." And at that point, we roll credits for this episode. I think, yeah. I think we've got enough cliffhanger and stuff to carry on with there, yeah. Now we've got about 15 minutes before technical time finish. So if you have the time, I'd be very grateful for Roses and Thorns.
Is there end of session stuff in Monster of the Week for like XP?
Not in this version.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, failure is enough. It's a reward all its own. So what I'd like to do is to start with thorns. You can give me thorns, you can give the system thorns. You can't give one another thorns. And what I'd like to do is to just work. I can't remember where I ended up on my sequence up and down the character keeper. So I'm going to start at left and work up to thorns and then come back for roses. So Jim, do you want to just highlight any thorns?
Man, I like the problem. It's the same problem I have with all these with Monster of the Week, just in general as a system, which is that the first session often feels like just kind of a lot of flailing around. because procedurals are tough. They're very tough. Like I almost never try to run them myself. Like I always like it when we play in a way that so like to the extent that there's a thorn, this is we're getting dropped into a preset module, and there's no, I don't feel like there's, well, I guess we'll play to find out next time, but I don't necessarily feel like any of our backgrounds or anything tie at all into what's going on here. Which if you're just running a couple of sessions, play test it, that's totally fine. But if I were to play like if I were to throw down on a campaign of this, I would definitely want, especially the first couple of adventures, to tie tightly into the characters' backgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think one of the issues with Monster of the Week generally is that you kind of have to have some idea what the monster is.
Yeah.
And that defines a degree of roots to it. But hopefully, I mean, what's interesting is that this is the third group I've done this with now in the last month, just to see whether, nobody ever quite gets to the end of it the same way. So it'd be interesting to see where you go next time.
Yeah, no, I think that's neat. I've got a little bit of history panic associated with this, but it's you're doing a good job of walking us through it and being nice about, like, you know, when we're making assumptions that are anachronistic and stuff like that. But that's always going to be a thing with stuff like this, trying to set the slider for, you know, how much of it is a movie that we've spent, you know, $70 million on it to get as correct as we can, and how much of it is a, like where on the movie versus Starz TV show history thing we are is always a challenge for a game like this.
Yeah, well, stop me if I get heavy-handed. That's really helpful. Just one other thing. Is there anything that you would like Cecily to do next time that she hasn't had a chance to do in this session? I mean, beyond what you've already talked about.
Yeah, so it even if it's contrived, I think what we need is I know we've got the brother-sister thing going on, and kind of our initial investigation of this town is us kind of clustered. Cecily has got to get off on her own to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the whole that's the whole reason that you play that mortal / whatever the civilian character is, so that you can get off on your own and get in over your head.
No, I get that. Fine. I'll certainly aim to do that. Then going along to Blaine. Any thorns, Blaine?
Mostly the same comments that Jim was making about how this is, dropped into a preset module. The startup, there was a heavy load of getting us up to speed and tied into this situation. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It might have, but it's not. It's not smooth for a single session play, and it's one of those things that is, in my opinion, doesn't work that great with the open table policy at the Gauntlet. Is you do all this work to get everybody tied together, then somebody's sick or doesn't show up, and then you have to scramble to get everybody back in. But that's the main thing. And then
do you think on that? Then do you think it would be more effective if there was simply one bond per character rather than working around all the possibilities, or would you settle for none?
Honestly, the way I usually do bonds is my method, obviously. So I usually don't do bonds first session, although that's not something that really works in the Gauntlet. I like to see where things start and then write the bond to fit that. But we don't have that here. That doesn't really work with open table either. But for this, I would actually, probably go with the one bond, especially if you're starting out as the group doesn't know each other that well. And
okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Alejandro, any thorns?
No, actually, I've enjoyed this session so far. So, actually, I do have a thorn. The investigate, look about you distinction, kind of, I feel like they're clunky. It seems like there should be one rather than two, and then just as a minor thing, the slashes everywhere kind of just makes it hard to read. I have to read the sentence twice sometimes. It just throws me off, especially when I'm trying to focus on the screen, but then I have to come down. I print everything out. So, but that's a slight thorn. That's just
no, but it is interesting because it's actually crossed my mind, and thinking about most of the week through this lens, I'm kind of going to go back and see if I can work out why there are two. Because one move with more questions might be simpler. But no, I get that. Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you. And if we go back the other way then, starting with Alejandro, any roses you want to hand about?
So I really liked, I had fun this session. I really was able to step into my character and really just lean in on this character. I like the relationship that's developing between Cecily and Synhamm. And I'm kind of interested to see how that develops with Owen. I don't think we've had a chance really to spend enough time together. So
very happily try to set up some one-on-one scenes at your convenience next time. Okay. then going, Blaine, any roses you want to put about?
I think it's just a fantastic setting idea, and then also the way you pulled in all the pictures for the characters is really paints the picture a little bit better. And then just setting it historically instead of generic fantasy worlds 213 is something I like to do. I'd like to see more of.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Jim.
Wait, a rose for, though we haven't seen it used yet, a question of honor. That basic move. That's great. That feels super medieval to me. Like, and that's not just like, that sure seems to me not just like you're full of crap, but your motives are impure or whatever. And that's a thing that happens a lot in these monster hunting shows, but that Monster of the Week doesn't really have a thing for. And I think that's a great addition. Just like that's the coolest thing that is like no kidding, hack wise. That's a thing that I look at and go, ooh, something like that would be cool to add to regular Monster of the Week. Like when someone calls bullshit on you, roll plus whatever, and yeah. I think that's pretty cool. So I really like that from a design. That's like my design rose for this. It's the thing that I noticed.
Well, and I have to give credit that it comes, the idea of it comes from Saga of the Icelanders.
Oh, sure. Yep.
The whole mechanic is around on that. So yeah, but it does seem to fit the setting. Okay, yeah. That's all really good. I'd like to give you all roses because I think you got to grips with the system from scratch. You've really leaned into the characters, and I think just taken the hints about setting and the rest really well. So I appreciate that, and I do. I don't want to give you history fear. I'm a biologist. I'm already afraid of history. So I don't need to frighten you a lot. But that was great. Thank you for that. I will hope to see you all next week. Same time, same bat channel. I'm assuming, Alejandro, that later start next week is just as helpful to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So the time, I've altered it in the Google Hangouts calendar, so that is the real time, whatever it is where you are. Okay.
Looks like, did you add a fourth player so that I could play next week? Is that what happened? Because I think I was initially on the wait list, or is it 4 players?
No, there's 4 players next week. Eduardo was very keen to play, but couldn't make the first session. What I'm going to try to do is, I mean, he's happy to drop out if it's inconvenient, but I'm going to try and deal with all the prep before we play, so we don't lose the momentum. Yeah. And if he hasn't got time to do that, then he'll do the decent thing, I'm sure. Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast. Thank you all. Just bear with me.